Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. I want to get straight to the point about what is on my mind this morning. I spent the greater part of the last 2 evenings at crime scenes, both in my own neighborhood and in other places around the city. I spent time last night at Memorial Health with the family of a victim fighting for his life, all because of crazy, senseless, and unnecessary gun violence. I don't know what's going on, and frankly, I do not care. What I do care about is the result, which is the use of guns to address or settle disputes. If you do not care about your life and your well-being, that's certainly your prerogative. But when your reckless behavior affects the lives and well-being of others, we have a problem. And Savannah, we have a problem. If we want to demonstrate about something and protest about something, this is what we should be demonstrating and protesting about. But instead of protesting at City Hall, the demonstrations and protests should be in the neighborhoods and in front of the homes of those who continue with this behavior and those who harbor them. If you know of someone living this reckless lifestyle, if you see this deadly behavior occurring and you choose to say nothing and do nothing, then in my mind, you are just as complicit as those who shot the gun. I do not care if it's your son, grandson, nephew, or brother. I don't care if they're 13, 23, 33, or 43. If you love them like you say you do, make them stop or turn them in. Make them stop or turn them in. It's unfortunate of people being victimized, and Chief Mentor is here to speak to the details that can be given at this point. But as you all know, I've made it a point that whenever and wherever possible, I make sure that I'm present in the moment so that I do not become desensitized about what is happening in our communities, that I'm in the presence of those that are anguished, that I'm in the presence of those that are in pain, that we're able to comfort where we can, provide assurance where we can, and do the best we can to, in the moment, to assure people that they have a responsibility to be able to talk to the police and to be able to help us to get these crimes solved. There's always been a lot of discussion lately about defund the police, but I will tell you that our officers, and I thank them, because at all of these scenes over the last couple of weeks, they're there, they're present, they're active, and they're carrying out their sworn duties. But Savannah, we need your help. We've been relatively blessed during the summer, but we cannot take those relative blessings for granted. We need your help. Police don't keep people safe. People keep people safe. And until we have a city where every street contained therein, someone can walk down the street and be safe and feel safe, until we can do that for every street in our city, then we still have work to do. Saturday afternoon, I was advised of a demonstration occurring downtown, which our public safety professionals were unaware of. As a matter of fact, I received the phone calls from other people who were watching what was occurring. Apparently, somewhere in the midst of these demonstrations, these young people chose to lay down in the middle of Bay Street. Bay Street is also US 80, which is a major east-west corridor in Savannah. It's also a state road within city limits. This roadway is heavily traveled, particularly by large trucks traversing east to west, west to east. Yet these young people were recklessly, and I say recklessly, laying in the westbound lane in front of City Hall. The video, which is now widely dispersed, shows a horse-drawn carriage turning westbound on Bay Street from Bull Street, immediately in front of these young people. As a truck traveling in a westbound lane, as it passed through some type of incendiary smoke device that emitted a greenish-blue smoke, which left the young people scrambling. Some of the young people apparently kicked and struck this man's truck, to which the video shows the driver exiting and pointing what appears to be a gun at the protesters. The drivers, thanks to the work of citizens and the Savannah Police Department, was quickly apprehended, questioned, and ultimately and rightfully arrested for aggravated assault and reckless behavior. And likewise, those who participated in this dangerous exercise may face charges as well. Two wrongs do not make a right. We have supported and we've gone out of our way to support the right of free speech, the right of free assembly, and we have supported any groups who wanted to demonstrate, but we cannot tolerate or support reckless or dangerous behavior. And I believe we could all agree laying in the middle of Bay Street is reckless and dangerous. Lying in the middle of Bay Street is not the way to prove your point. Lying in the middle of Bay Street is the way to get hurt or killed. We're asking to please be and please act smart. As we continue to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, last week we introduced another seat at Savannah's table, this one for Savannah's Hispanic Latino community called HOLA Savannah, H-O-L-A, which stands for Hispanic Outreach, Leadership, and Advocacy. We are looking forward to intentionally engaging Savannah's 7,000 Hispanic citizens in new, creative, and exciting ways. Mi casa es su casa. I've always been taught to pray for our leaders. So it is with that thought in mind that I ask your continued prayers for the President of the United States and the First Lady of the United States, White House staff, and those affected by COVID-19 around the world. The incidents of the last few days should serve as an ever-present and urgent reminder to wear a mask, to watch your distance, and to wash your hands. That COVID-19 does not care about class, economic status, doesn't care about race or creed, doesn't care about gender. And if COVID-19 can enter the most secure building in the land and affect the most protected man in the world, the one with the best health care in the world, then it certainly can affect any of us. Let us govern ourselves accordingly. This week, The Coastal Health District started new hours for the COVID-19 testing at the Savannah Civic Center. You can now get tested on Mondays from 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. and on Tuesdays through Fridays from 8:30 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. So Wednesdays are now not happening. Monday from 8:30 to 3:30, and Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays from 8:30 to 1 p.m. Again, no appointment is necessary. Walk-up testing is at the Civic Center, starts at 8:30 a.m. for the first 100 people in line. The walk-up line forms on the Montgomery Street side of the Civic Center, and the Health Department asks that no one lines up before 8 o'clock a.m. Drive-through testing begins when walk-up testing is complete. There is no testing at the Civic Center on Wednesdays, so the Health Department staff can focus on specific areas of Chatham County where case numbers are highest and where some of our more at-risk residents live. Tomorrow, you can get a free COVID-19 test from 9 o'clock a.m. to 4 o'clock p.m. at the Chatham County Health Department Midtown Clinic located at 1602 Drayton Street. Appointments are required on Wednesdays, but you can make an appointment online by going to covid19.dph.ga.gov. That's covid19.dph.ga.gov, or by calling 912-230-9744 Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. Please arrive no more than 5 minutes early for your scheduled appointment. Our friends at the United Way of the Coastal Empire continue to help Savannahans with pass-through mortgage, rent, and utility bills directly related to the COVID-19 pandemic, thanks to CARES Act funding from the city of Savannah. The United Way is still accepting applications for assistance. If you would like more information, please call 211 Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. or visit savannahga.gov/CARES Act to fill out an application online. Applications are also open for rising 8th graders, well now 8th graders, to apply for the Savannah Youth Council class of 2021, which this year, due to the pandemic, will begin at the end of October. SYC is a City of Savannah youth program that provides opportunities to learn about local government, gain a sense of civic responsibility, and develop leadership skills. Students may apply online at savannahga.gov/SYC, savannahga.gov/SYC. For more information or for assistance with your application, you may call 651-6520, 651-6520, or you can email syc@savannahga.gov, syc@savannahga.gov. There is still time to fill out the 2020 census, but we do not want you to wait for someone to call you or knock on your door to complete it. Chatham County loses $2.3 million for every 1,000 residents per year unaccounted for in the census. Please do not be the reason that our city misses out on very necessary funding. Go to my2020census.gov, my2020census.gov, or call 844-330-2020, 844-330-2020 today to be counted. If you prefer to fill out the census in Spanish, you can call 844-486-2020, 844-486-2020. Election Day is 4 weeks from today, and you need to start planning now about how you will vote. If you would like to request an absentee ballot, as I did, You can do so until Friday, October the 30th. You can request one online at ballotrequest.sos.ga.gov, ballotrequest.sos.ga.gov, or in person at the Chatham County Board of Registrar's office at 1117 Eisenhower Drive. 1117 Eisenhower Drive. New this year, the state launched a ballot tracking website that allows voters to sign up for alerts to follow their absentee ballot when issued, received, and accepted. Please go to Georgia.ballottracks, BALLOTTRAX, ballottracks.net/voter. Enter your information and sign up for notifications. You can also monitor your ballot status on the My Voter page at mvp.sos.ga.gov, mvp.sos.ga.gov, and we will post all these links on the City of Savannah website and social media platforms. Make sure that you follow the instructions on your ballot to fill it out correctly, then seal and sign your completed ballot. You can return your ballot by mail, in person, or at a secure drop box. Mail ballots must be postmarked by November the 3rd and received by November the 6th. Now, we know about our challenges about mail. Do not wait until November the 3rd to postmark your ballot. Please send it in as soon as possible. You can also drop off your ballot in person to the Board of Registrar's office at 1117 Eisenhower Drive in a secure drop box. As you are aware, the City of Savannah has 4 secure drop boxes within our city limits, located at the Savannah Civic Center, the Carver Village Community Center, the W.W. Law Community Center, and the Liberty City Community Center. We wanted to make sure that our residents had the access to participate in the process. All absentee ballots brought to the office or placed in a drop box must be received by 7 p.m. on Election Day, November the 3rd. It's also come to my attention that a lot of people are missing their recorder's court dates. It should be clear that if you're scheduled to be in court, that you're supposed to show up. If you do not attend your hearing, you will be held in contempt of court, which will come with an additional $100 fine, and after 30 days, your driver's license could be suspended. If you need to reschedule a court date for a legitimate reason, you can call or email Recorder's Court at 912-652-7425, 912-652-7425, or by email recorderscourt@savannahga.gov, recorderscourt@savannahga.gov. Almost finally, I received formal notification on Friday of what we've informally discussed for the past 9 months. Our city manager, Pat Monahan, has announced his intention to return to the happy land known as retirement. And he's been smiling ever since. Again, for us, this was not unexpected, and the city manager and I concurred that this was the best time for this to happen. Our city is okay now, and our city will be okay going forward. Savannah will be forever indebted to Mr. Pat Monahan for his experienced, steady hand, lending his considerable skill, and more importantly, his integrity while leading during the most turbulent and uncertain times in our 287-year history. In the coming days, we will share how we will publicly thank Pat for his service, and we will, and our transition plan going forward. Thank you, Mr. Monahan. Finally, I'm very pleased to have with me today Ms. Sydney Campbell. Stand up, Ms. Sydney. Wave, y'all put the camera on Ms. Sydney. Y'all, yeah, wave, yeah, let everybody see Ms. Sydney, see? All right, there she go. She's giving up a day of her fall break to hang out with her favorite mayor. That's what she told me. So I'm glad to have her here, and I'm sure she'll be available to answer any questions you may have for her. This ends my prepared remarks, and I'll entertain any questions you may have. And again, Chief Mentor is also available.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Morning.
I know you said you aren't sure why we're seeing so much violence in Savannah, but do you think that...
Well, I know why. I mean, the bottom line is this, and I reject the argument that people commit crime because they're poor. We've always had poor people. All of us, if truth be told, have not been poor. This is issues of bad decision making. If I have a beef with somebody, then I don't fool up with them. I'm not around with them. What we have found, and I'm sure the chief can concur, that our crime issue, our violent crime issue, is not random crime. This is not people like in some cities where it's just, you know, shoot them up. What we have here is we know each other. We have an issue with each other. It might be over a woman. It might be over drugs. It might be over money. It might be over some slight or some turf. But those are what those issues are. And as I've said many times before, when I was growing up, if you had an issue with somebody, I mean, at most, we go outside and we fight it out. As history showed now that when it's all over, you know, eventually we become cool, or it's just over. When you introduce a gun into the equation, the results are final. And not only have you victimized the person you're shooting, you have victimized your own family. Because one or two things are going to happen. The Savannah Police Department is going to find you, and you will be apprehended, or the streets are going to get you. And you're taken away from your family. We say it's homicide, but the reality is that it's really suicide. It's genocide. Because what upsets me is time and time again, it is people who look just like me. They're black males. And I just refuse to believe that we, because of our race or gender, that we're predisposed. Now, yes, we have systemic conditions that make life very, very difficult for us. But the point of the matter is that when you pick up that gun and you make a decision to point it at someone, that's a decision. And what happens, unfortunately, and I guess if we were in an OK corral and everybody just wanted to shoot each other and that's on them, that's fine. But the problem is bullets don't have names. They don't know zip codes. And they go where they go. And innocent people get in the way. And innocent people become victimized. And so that's what my concern is. You know, I don't know the natures of the beef, but we need a community that is going to continue to say that this is unacceptable. I know people who have families that are in that life, and I've told them, and it's probably not a popular position, but I've told these mothers and grandmothers, if you're harboring them, you're just as wrong as those that are doing it. Because you know your loved one is engaged in that. And so the day comes where that young man is victimized, and then, you know, it's like you're crying. Well, I mean, you should have been crying when they were engaged in that behavior. How many more young men a young woman have to be victimized before we recognize, if you love them enough to either tell them to stop or to get involved, to let the police know what you know. Soon I will start again my gun buyback program, because I know that there are guns on the street that don't need to be there. I know that. And I know that when you have guns in hands that should not have them, and again, this is not an affront to responsible legal gun owners, because people will say that. No, this is about guns that are in the wrong hands. It's an equation that leads to disaster. And so I'm going to gather as much money as I can and as many guns as we can buy off of these kids and get them off the street. We're going to be able to do that. We're going to do that. I'm tired of going to crime scenes. So.
And just to make sure, so there were 2 incidents over the weekend, the one that happened out on Bay Street and the one that happened on Cathy Road?
There was actually more than that. I'll let the chief respond directly to those.
Awesome.
I want to speak out of turn.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning, ma'am.
So when it comes to talking about the reckless conduct of these protesters, I think it's helpful to understand if you can kind of talk about how do you peacefully protest? How do you go about that process? Just, talk to me about that.
Well, what we have done here in Savannah is contact the police. I mean, first of all, you could protest anywhere. You could demonstrate anywhere. And our sidewalks are acceptable. We have squares. And we've seen examples where people do it responsibly. This is the second time that this has happened. The first time was maybe 2 weeks ago on a Friday. I was actually interviewing one of the candidates for city manager in my office and became aware of young people lying in the street. Myself and Sergeant Gray went downstairs and we directed traffic because these young people were laying in the middle of the street and trucks are barreling down the street, and admittedly some of them could not see, and as you know, you can't stop some of these trucks on a dime. It caused a huge problem. So Sergeant Gray and myself, we literally, until the police were able to come, were directing traffic around these young people. We've opened ourselves up. We've said very clearly, if you want to demonstrate, let us know so we can protect you. And Chief Minter and our police have been very kind in making sure that we've escorted them, that we've cleared ways to be able to do that. The goal of demonstrating is to make a point. Laying in the middle of Bay Street gets you killed. And for these young people, I'm sure that their parents were not aware that they were laying in the middle of the street. And I don't know how we would explain to a parent that their child was run over by a truck because they were laying in the middle of the street. In this case, what even made it more dangerous was that you had a variety of things going on. I saw a horse-drawn carriage, I saw an SUV, and I saw a truck. And any of these could have run over these young people, particularly with horses. They get spooked and cannot be controlled. And so if that happens, these young people are laying in the middle of the street. I don't know what happened. The chief can give more details about the man pulling out a gun. But to me, that was absolutely criminal. So I don't excuse his behavior, but that I don't excuse the behavior of those that are laying in the street either. We just have to be safe.
And when it comes to, obviously it's cut and dry when it comes to the man bringing out a gun. But with the protesters, do they face any consequences? Are there any way to kind of apprehend them?
Well, again, the benefit of having a world-class accredited police department is that we have the ability to identify and locate who the folks are. I mean, that's the benefit of having the department we have with some of the tools that they have. So the chief will probably speak more about that, but I expect that they will be identified and then determine whether charges are brought against them for that as well. I mean, again, that's illegal behavior. And so even in a time of civil disobedience, you understand that if you knowingly disobey the law, that there are consequences for being able to do that. And I just would hope that these young people think about that, think about their futures, think about their well-being when addressing those issues.
And then my last question is just about the city manager search. So with Mr. Monahan announcing his retirement, what are we looking at in terms of an interim city manager, and or what conversations have taken place with the 3 candidates we have kind of lingering?
Well, I have not had any conversation with the 3 candidates. We hired a recruiter, and so the recruiter will handle that end of it. I ultimately will make some contact to thank them for coming to our city. And so that addresses that side of it. As it relates to Mr. Monahan, he's not leaving our community. He'll still be here, and he's offered graciously his willingness to continue to help us. I do have several interim plans or strategies that I will share with council, and from there we'll decide about how best to move forward. In any case, the city is in and remain in capable hands, because the city is a team, and so the team is great. And I think that Mr. Monahan will leave us in a position where we'll be able to adopt a budget, and really plan for the future.
And just to be clear, the city council has officially scrapped these 3 candidates.
To be clear, the city council could not agree on any of the 3 candidates. So, I mean, we're just really at an impasse.
I just have a couple questions for the police chief.
Right. Okay. Sean, you have anything?
Yeah, I was going to ask the chief a few questions.
Okay. Chief? And I thank the chief and command staff for the hours I spent out on the crime scenes and in the hospitals. The chief and his team were there as well. And so my thanks and continued thanks to the men and women of Savannah's finest. Chief?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, so going back to all, the gun violence, do you have any statistics or information you can provide on how many of the recent shootings have been gang-related violence? And is that anything our gang task force is going to work with, you and the mayor? Any plans moving forward with that?
Well, we're still looking at what the origin of some of these violent incidents that have occurred actually have. We're looking into several things that may have led to this increase in violence. Let me go over a couple of the cases that were most prominent, and the mayor hit the nail on the head. We're dealing with what I'm calling, we're looking at just about all of these incidents have what we've identified as a pattern, and that pattern is total disrespect. And you look at these particular incidents. We had one that occurred on Saturday, about 2 o'clock p.m. That was the one in the 600 block of West 44th. That was about 20 rounds that were fired. Several of those rounds went into a residence that had a mother, a father, and 3 kids inside. I spent time talking to the kids, 6, 8, and 12 years old. But either one of those kids could have been hit by somebody indiscriminately firing rounds at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in the neighborhood with no respect whatsoever on where those bullets could have landed. The one on Sunday night, 900 block of Cathy, were 2 males that were shot. That's still under investigation. Yesterday, we had an incident in the 600 block of Crescent. That was 10 rounds that were fired into a residence. Thank God a teenager who was usually in that bedroom and may have been in the bed was not struck. But those were 10 rounds that were fired into a residence. Then last night, we had 2 shootings, one at 5 p.m. That was at MLK and Gwinnett. That was a 21-year-old female who was shot. And then we had one at 8 o'clock last night. That was a 1300 block of East 39th. That was a 57-year-old male who was struck. I want to say a couple things about our response to these incidents, especially our initial response. The call on MLK and Gwinnett, the officers were there within seconds of that incident occurring, actually were able to detain and detain a person of interest who was running from the area, who also was armed with a firearm. So that shows the type of immediate response. Our officers are there, they're in the area, but if you look at some of our statistical data from our Strategic Investigations Unit, there unfortunately is no shortage of work for the men and women of the Savannah Police Department out there. Since January of this year, our Strategic Investigations Unit has taken 135 guns off the street, made 274 felony arrests, 61 misdemeanor arrests, issued 327 traffic citations, confiscated over $110,000 in currency, and have executed 50 search warrants. Now, when you look at also at our crime stats, we were still down violent crime by 1%, property crime by 25%, and part 1 crime by 21%. Those are really good statistics, but they really don't mean anything when you're sitting at home and there are bullets flying through your house, or you're riding down the street and there are bullets flying down the street. This is what we need to stop. This is what we need help and assistance from the community on, and I can tell you, responding to these crime scenes, I go out there specifically to talk to community members, and I can tell you the vast majority of the community members are as fed up about this crime in the city as we are, and they're starting to come forward. I believe together, if we continue to unite and work together, we'll continue to address it, but we need to continue that strong focus on addressing this violent crime.
A couple more questions. You mentioned, patterns in these shootings. Any suspicions or evidence that this could have, multiple of these could have been done by maybe the same person?
Well, we're looking into that, but it's just like the mayor said. These are not random situations. The one that happened on Saturday over on West 44th, those were two individuals who were shooting at another individual who was trying to shoot back at those two individuals. These are not people that just riding through the neighborhood and indiscriminately firing rounds. The one that happened on Kathy, we believe that that may be connected to some people that they know. So the detectives are actively working these, trying to find out what connections they are and if there are any connections to the different cases. The cases don't appear to be related to each other at this particular point in time.
And then last question for you. Sorry, I need to look back at my notes. So you've talked a lot about your response to, these shootings. Any discussions on how to, be proactive to them? Anything the department's doing to reduce the amount of them before?
Well, absolutely. We're looking at three things. First and foremost, like we talked about, is the level of intelligence that we're getting. We realize that there are community members out there that are seeing things that are still not necessarily comfortable with coming forward with that information and providing that information to us. But we're working on trying to break down some of those barriers and getting as much intelligence so that we can get ahead of some of these situations. The second thing is we're continuing to focus on our violent offenders in our community. Our statistics are just like the statistics around the country. We're finding about 6 to 7% of our violent offenders in this community are responsible for about 60 to 70% of our crime. We're also looking at what we're calling focused deterrence, and focused deterrence basically involves two critical areas, and that's community mobilization and social services actions. We want to make sure we're continuing to mobilize the community and making sure there are resources available in our community to assist individuals so they don't feel they have to be involved in criminal behavior.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Good morning.
Morning.
Wanted to ask you really quickly about the walk around that y'all did a few weeks back in the Fraser Homes area of town. What progress has been made with a few of the problem areas that were identified in terms of lighting, in terms of partnership with the HOA over there to make that area safer?
Well, we're still in the preliminary stages of that. The Housing Authority has put together a really good extensive list on some of the things they're moving forward on. We had a couple of our officers go by and do what we call a CPTED evaluation, crime prevention through environmental design. So we're taking that. We provided that information to the Housing Authority. We're kind of pairing up the two lists, and we're going to get back together real soon and make sure that we're going out and addressing all those issues that we saw from the police side, that they've seen from the Housing Authority side, and start moving forward with a coordinated partnership in terms of a plan for addressing those issues. I can tell you that since we've been over there and we did the walk around, with the exception of yesterday, we really have not seen any major crime issues going on over there. And as a testament to that, we had the officers who were in the area over there yesterday. when that shooting occurred, and the officers were able to respond within seconds and were able to identify a person of interest running from the location.
When looking at, say, average age of the suspects in these shootings, are we talking young people? Are we talking teenagers? Are we talking, 20s, 30s? What's the demographic there?
We're talking the spectrum. We're talking anywhere from 16 to 25 years of age is what we're normally seeing. The other thing I want to be real clear on, because I don't want the housing authority to bear the full brunt of anything that happens in the area of the housing authority. There is nothing that indicates that our shooting yesterday was associated with anyone who lived or visited the Frazier Homes area.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. And that led me to my follow-up question as far as the age groups. How are we partnering? How's the department partnering with programs like Youth Intercept, with the DA's office? Any initiatives to really get to kids, teenagers, before they pursue these violent acts or participate in these violent acts?
Well, that's a great question, and that's one of the things that we're really looking at and we're really focusing on. We're going to continue to work with some of the task forces that the mayor's put together in conjunction with some of the things that our other elected officials are working on. But we're also seeing what we can do to get more of our community partners involved that have youth-oriented programs, whether that's community of faith members or whether that's recreational programs through the city. But that is a huge focus that we have right now. We have got to give young people in our community something else to focus on other than criminal activity and possibly gang activity.
Thank you, Chief.
Hi, Chief. So a lot of early data suggests in other cities that the pandemic is kind of exacerbating the gun violence and just violence overall problem in a lot of other cities, not Savannah. I was wondering if anecdotally you've noticed that to be the case here, that the pandemic is kind of exacerbating a violence issue?
Well, we've had people who have been, inside their homes, lost their jobs, other extenuating circumstances, but that in no way excuses anybody's behavior. Whether it's a pandemic or not, it is not right, it's not appropriate to shoot at people, to shoot at cars, to shoot indiscriminately in the houses, to commit any criminal actions. That is not acceptable whether it's a pandemic or not. And those are things that we will continue to address in an aggressive manner.
And I know you said that there were a couple people in the hospital, but there have not been any fatalities from any of the shootings over the weekend.
You will be receiving an update very shortly this morning. I think Bianca's here, so you should be receiving an update on both of those shooting victims this morning.
Okay, and I'm not sure if you have this number off the top of your head, but when we were doing the gun buyback program, do you have any idea of how many guns were actually bought back?
I'd have to do some research on that. I don't have that information available.
For what?
How many guns we bought back during the gun buyback program? Yeah.
35.
Okay, the mayor's saying 35.
Good morning, Chief.
Good morning.
So I just have one question. Obviously, there's no secret that there's a lot of tension between communities and police officers during this time. So when you're responding to these scenes, do you feel like there is this added layer of kind of distrust and disrespect because of everything that's going on, or what are you experiencing in terms of when you're responding to these communities?
I'm very proud of the fact of how our community is responding to us as law enforcement professionals. We have not really seen a lot of animosity towards us. I've been on just about all of these crime scenes. People are talking to us. They're not trying to shy away. There are no really issues or concerns with law enforcement. Their concern, for the most part, is what may occur if somebody finds out that they've been talking to us, not necessarily coming forward and talking to us. We've been very proud of the fact that we've been going out on crime scenes. People have been offering us water, coming by, thanking us. Like I said, when I was out on a crime scene on Saturday, I had several people tell me, Chief, we appreciate you guys being out here, and we're sick and tired of this stuff too. And we really appreciate what you're doing out here on the streets. So I'm very appreciative of the level of support that we have and we continue to receive from our community here. I mean, it really speaks volumes of the great community we have here in Savannah.
Good to hear. Thank you.
I would echo the chief's comments on that. Part of the reason why I and assist where I can to attend crime scenes because I want to make sure to be a bridge between the community and the police, and the chief is absolutely correct. We've seen gratitude, and again, this goes back when people say we don't need police. I mean, I think, the people who have been victimized wouldn't say that. And so they've been communicating, and we're going to need that to be stepped up in a much more aggressive way. I would prefer ultimately that it occurs before something happens than tell us who did it. Tell us who's out there doing it. And, again, we would love to talk to people preemptively. More importantly, let's get the guns out of their hands, hence why my thoughts about reinstituting a gun buyback program again. This wasn't done through the police department. It was just done between me and a nonprofit because we recognize that if you can't be gun violence if there's no gun to shoot. So that's what we're working on. Finally, for real, October, which is, of course, the best month in the year, is also Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And we want to remind everyone that love should never hurt. And we know that during this month, incidents of domestic violence are exacerbated by the fact that more people are home, and they're home for longer periods of time. We want to remind you that love should never hurt. And so we encourage you to call Safe Shelters. 629-8888. 629-8888 is the crisis number. Call 911 or just get out. Leave. Leave. We want to talk to you in the present tense and not talk about you in the past tense. And then, of course, also October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month as well. And we want to celebrate those survivors that refuse to die. We also want to honor those who have helped pave the way who are no longer with us. And so we want to remind men and women, because men do get breast cancer, to have yourself checked out and make sure that you are able to be detected early. Early detection, I understand, is the way of dealing with that. So just want to send shouts out on those. So want to thank you, want to thank our interpreters. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. May God bless you, and God will continue to bless Savannah. We will be safe. Thank you.